If you want to get the maximum reimbursement for your patients and therefore the most yeses to your services as leads coming in, as well as being able to continue through the full plan of care and not worry about the financial side of things, let me tell you right now, a lot of practice owners have it wrong. It is not as simple as just swiping a card and handing them a receipt or a Superbill. When it comes to best practices for out-of-network billing and payment collection in your practice, there is a lot that many practice owners don't know. So in this video, I'm going to share with you those best practices, lucrative out-of-network billing opportunities that you might not know about, treatment packages, payment plans, and other payment collection and Superbill pro tips. So get out your notepad, because this is going to be a big one. Hello and welcome to today's episode. My name is Jarod Carter. I'm a physical therapist. I've had a successful cash-based practice since 2010, and I'm the creator of the Private Pay Profit Formula. I help my colleagues just like you to create your own concierge, out-of-network, or cash-based practice so you can end reliance on greedy insurance companies, provide a level of care you are ultimately proud of, and regain control of your future and your profits. So if you're new here, I would really suggest subscribing, because I put free trainings out like this all the time, and they always have a free resource associated with them that you can download. And the free resource for this episode is a Superbill template. It's going to tell you everything you need to have on your Superbills for patients to get maximum reimbursement and for them to not be kicked back by insurance companies for missing information. You can download that at drjarodcarter.com/episode 31. Now, as we dig in today's topic, I just want to discuss a little bit of semantics first. Some people consider cash-based practice different actually than an out-of-network practice. In this video, I'm going to use them somewhat interchangeably. Some people say cash-based is they don't do any billing on behalf of the patient, and out-of-network they actually still bill. But as I'm going to explain here in a moment, either type of practice can actually do either type of billing. So I'll first start out by saying that whether you have a partially in-network and partially out-of-network practice, which a lot of people will call a hybrid practice, or you are completely out-of-network, you're completely cash pay, you don't mess with insurance companies at all, there are still essentially two paths that you can take when it comes to billing and payment collection. The first, and certainly lowest administrative burden, is to simply provide a Superbill at the time of service or after the service is completed that the patient can then submit self-claims on their own. You just let them know whatever reimbursement, whatever self-claims, that's all between you and your insurance provider. The next approach is to actually bill the insurance companies on an out-of-network basis. This is a lot more typical of a practice that was insurance-based or fully in-network and is transitioning out-of-network, because they already have the billing practices. They might already have an internal billing department, and they're just like, okay, with these contracts we've dropped, we're still going to bill on behalf of the patient just on an out-of-network basis. Or they might have an outsourced billing company that can do the same thing. That's where we see billing on an out-of-network basis the most common. However, there are some cash-based practices that do it as a value add, so that they take it out of the hands of the patients. They have then, of course, collecting the money directly from the insurance company, as well as any part of the deductible that patient has to hit. So you do see it, but it's most common in those out-of-network or partially out-of-network practices. I'm going to give an example here in a moment of how there's, in some regions and with some payers, it's actually really lucrative, a lot more lucrative, to bill on behalf of your patient on an out-of-network basis than to simply collect your self-pay rate up front. So those are the two general paths of billing and collecting. You either just give them the Superbill and let them handle it themselves and you collect at the time of service, or you bill on their behalf on an out-of-network basis. There's a couple pro tips here. One, if you're doing the Superbill approach, like with my practice, then definitely make sure your Superbills have all the needed information. So again, download that free template and make sure that your Superbills are set up for success, or setting your patients up for success. It's at drjarodcarter.com/episode 31. The second pro tip is that some cash practices who just provide Superbills actually look up the out-of-network benefits for their patients to try and help them to make that decision. And the problem I see with this is that if you give them information that their insurance company is telling you through any of those different portals, Reimbursify, which is a great app that we use in our practice, they can bring up the out-of-network benefits very quickly. The problem is that we all know insurance companies do a few things really well, and one of them is to deny claims and deny reimbursements that they should be paying. So if you tell a patient, hey, you've hit your out-of-network deductible and you should be getting 60% of this back, and for any reason the insurance company doesn't do so when they start to submit those self-claims, then that's going to come back to you. Even if you explain it really well and you have them sign off that they understand it's really between them, it doesn't matter. It's going to leave a bad taste in their mouth associated with your practice. So for that reason, I typically don't suggest that if you're going to do the Superbill thing and you're not going to bill on their behalf, that you actually look up their out-of-network benefits or give them any idea. I give them questions on exactly what they need to ask their insurance company to get a sense of what they're likely to get reimbursed. And you know what, now that I think about it, we'll add that into the free resource as well. So at drjarodcarter.com/episode 31, we'll have our Superbill info, and we'll also provide the questions that I give to my prospective patients to ask their insurance companies to get a sense of what they're going to be getting back in reimbursement or application towards a deductible. I want to say one more thing for those practices that are going to be billing on behalf of their patients or considering it. If you're looking at dropping contracts and thinking, do I just give them Superbills at this point, or do I continue to bill on an out-of-network basis? Go to that payer and see what they actually pay on average for out-of-network services. In most cases, they're not paying as well as they do for in-network services, but I do have clients in different parts of the country where there are plans that pay way better for out-of-network services. So an example of one of my coaching clients, she has a self-pay rate of about $179 now. She just raised it. But there's a couple of popular payers that pay her over $200 for actual charges. She sends the full bill and it's not discounted down to her self-pay rate. The full bill goes to the insurance company and she gets the full amount back. It comes out to about $220 a visit, which is pretty solid. Now again, this doesn't happen with all plans or in all parts of the country. So look into it. You might find that if you're planning on just charging those out-of-network patients $150, in some cases you might be able to collect a lot more than that. And if you already have a billing department in place or a good outsourced billing department, then it might make more sense financially for you to actually bill on behalf of those patients. So look into that and see if it makes sense for your practice. The next thing I wanted to talk about is your fee schedule. And it's important that you operate from a single fee schedule. For instance, you're not changing the amount you charge per CPT code from one patient to the next for any reason. A common thing that I see in the PT world, and this goes for any of the fields where a mobile practice or a hybrid mobile and in-clinic option or service is something that you offer, which is the same. We actually offer mobile services as well. You can't charge your mobile people a whole lot more for that service, and on the Superbill, just increase the amount per CPT code. It doesn't work that way, and you shouldn't do that. You want the Superbills that go to all your patients, whether in-clinic or mobile, to have the same charge per CPT code. So you see them both for an hour in each place. But what brings the cost of those at-home visits, which should be significantly more, right? You should be charging a lot more for that, is a convenience fee or a travel surcharge of some sort. Now, they might not like that they aren't going to be reimbursed on the full amount that they're paying, but that's just part of the convenience of what you're offering. You need to operate in your practice from a single fee schedule that doesn't change from one patient to the next for any reason. Okay, now let's get to the fun part, collecting money. Now, if you're billing on behalf of patients on an out-of-network basis, that is, of course, going to be determined in a big way by that particular payer. I have some clients that what they'll do is they'll collect at least a part. If the patient still has a deductible, they'll collect a certain amount of that deductible for each visit, and then they'll balance bill when they get back the reimbursement from the insurance company and they see how much more is owed from the patient, then they'll bill them at the end of the month. Now, a little caveat there is that in those hybrid practices, sometimes if you have, like my client I mentioned earlier, a self-pay rate that has a discount, brings it down to, like in her case, $179 from $220. Some people will obviously say, I'll just do the self-pay rate. I'm not worried about hitting an out-of-network deductible. But some people will still want to use their insurance and pay the additional, like pay $220 a visit, right? But for those who say, I'm going to just do self-pay, but I'll submit self-claims, you might still need to hand them a Superbill, and then they can submit the self-claims themselves to see if they can get anything applied to a deductible or anything back directly from their insurance. So you can offer to bill on an out-of-network basis, and their price might be up here because they got to hit a deductible, and it's going to be more like $220 a visit or something like that in her case. Or they might opt to do, I'll just take the discount and then submit the claims myself. And for practices like mine where you're just collecting money at the time of service or after each visit and handing them a Superbill, of course we upload ours to the patient portal. We're not just printing and handing them anymore. But in those cases, I would really strongly suggest to get a card on file. Don't make the end of a wonderful hour with your clinician the last thing in that hour to be a painful swipe of the credit card. Like, if you can avoid it, it's not the best way to end those sessions. book their next visit and have let them know the admin will be billing their card on file at the end of the day or something like that. That's what we do. And then finally, on the having a card on file topic, a lot of people ask, how do you do that? It's kind of awkward to ask about it over the phone. No problem. You should have online intake paperwork, and most of those are either customizable or have forms that you can collect that card on file as part of their intake paperwork. We just let them know, hey, you're going to be sent a link with your online paperwork, and one of the pages in that paperwork is going to be where you'll provide the credit card that you want us to charge for your care. Okay, now we're going to talk about packages. Packages are a great way to get boosts of cash flow sometimes when you most need it. And they also help to get more buy-in from the patients from the very beginning. Now, I would suggest to go back and listen to my episode on when to offer packages, because I think sometimes in the very first visit, it's a little early for some people to say yes to it. But on the topic of collecting money for packages, I've had some coaching clients say, hey, when people are saying yes to these packages and they say, can we spread it out? And I say yes, I'm like, no. I mean, the whole point of getting a discount for prepaying for a grouping of treatments is the cash flow part of it. If you're spreading it out over time, you're just giving a discount. You're not getting anything back as a practice. So as a general rule, if the package is less than 4 figures in cost, then I do not split those up into payments. Your discretion though, if you're selling $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 packages and you want to split them into 2 or 3 payments, monthly payments, then I wouldn't argue against that. But anything under 4 figures, they shouldn't be getting a big discount if they're not paying for it up front and you're getting the benefit of that chunk of change all at once. Now finally, payment plans. I really think that every out-of-network cash-based practice should have payment plans of some sort on offer. It will help you to get yeses from people who truly have a hard time with paying at the time of service in the beginning, when usually the treatments are grouped a little closer together, right? And so what we can use this as, like, yes, at the upfront cost in a cash-based or out-of-network practice like ours is often higher than in an insurance-based practice. However, because we tend to get people better faster and with fewer total visits, if you run the numbers and you had to see us 3 or 4 times over the next month versus seeing another practice where they wanted running your insurance, but they wanted to see you 2 or 3 times a week for 2 months, you can add that up with your copay, or especially if you have a deductible, and the total cost is going to be much lower at our practice in many, many cases with many of our patients. And at that point, you can introduce the fact that you have payment plans to take that higher upfront cost and spread it out over a comfortable amount of time and a comfortable monthly payment. I would suggest that you don't offer payment plans when you can tell the plans of care are going to be really, really long, or that you can't finish out the payments for the balance within 6 months or less of the likely discharge. The end, as you get further and further away from discharge, the likelihood of them stopping payment, but more likely that their card just expires, gets higher and higher. And the further away from the end of that last experience with you and your practice, the more likely they're going to kind of conveniently forget to update that card with you. It doesn't happen often, and I'll tell you this much: for people who are really like, I don't want to do payment plans because we're going to lose all kinds of money with balances unpaid, and it's so rare that you get a lot more money in the long run from the yeses that you did get because you had payment plans than from the money lost from those few that have a card expire and don't update it and finish out their balance with you. I'm telling you, having a payment plan is a key tactic when it comes to billing and payment and getting yeses for your services. Okay, so there you have it. Best pro tips for payment collection and billing in a cash-based or out-of-network practice. If you found this useful, please share it with a colleague. Leave any questions or comments you have below. I really love fielding those and interacting with you guys. Again, drjarodcarter.com/episode 31 to get your Superbill template, as well as the questions to provide to your prospective patients to ask their insurance companies to get an idea of what their true cost of care is going to be. Thank you again for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode.